The Karathi delegation floated in the observation deck of the Meridian Station, their chitinous limbs folded in what their translators assured was amusement. Commander Dravik, his carapace gleaming under the artificial lights, gestured toward the human woman suspended in the center of the training bay below. "Your species fascinates us," Dravik clicked, his mandibles working slowly. "You bring primitive weapons to the stars. Tell me, does Earth not possess railguns, plasma rifles, directed energy weapons?" Captain Sarah Chen rotated slowly in the zero-gravity environment, checking the tension on her crossbow's limber. The medieval weapon looked absurdly out of place against the backdrop of holographic targeting systems and magnetic field generators that lined the training bay. "We have all of those, Commander," she replied through her helmet comm. "But sometimes the old ways work best." The Karathi's translator chirped with what might have been laughter. "Impossible. We have studied your primitive projectile weapons. They require gravity for trajectory calculation, atmospheric resistance for stability, and ground leverage for the wielder. In zero-gravity combat, they are useless curiosities." Sarah smiled inside her helmet. The Karathi weren't wrong. Conventional firearms did face challenges in zero-G. Recoil sent shooters spinning, bullets traveled indefinitely without air resistance, and aiming required completely different instincts. But the Karathi had made one critical error. They assumed humans played by the same rules as everyone else. "Permission to demonstrate, Commander?" Sarah asked. Dravik's translator emitted an affirmative tone. "Please, we are curious to see how badly this fails." The other Karathi observers chittered among themselves, their translator devices creating a symphony of amused clicks and hisses. To them, this was entertainment, watching a young species embarrass itself with outdated technology. Sarah took a slow breath, centering herself. The crossbow in her hands was her own design, a composite of carbon fiber and titanium that she'd spent 3 years perfecting. The Karathi saw it as primitive. They didn't understand that sometimes primitive meant proven. "Target Alpha, hostile boarding action, 12 meters, moving perpendicular," the training computer announced. A holographic Karathi warrior materialized in the bay, its projection moving with the jerky, aggressive patterns of a combat boarding scenario. Sarah's fingers found the firing mechanism. The Karathi had explained to humanity quite patiently why crossbows couldn't work in space. The lack of gravity meant no stable shooting platform. The recoil would send the shooter tumbling. The bolt would travel forever without air to slow it, making it as dangerous to allies as enemies. Every physicist in the galaxy agreed. Crossbows were planet-side weapons, period. Sarah pulled the trigger. The bolt released with a mechanical thunk that vibrated through her suit's gloves. But she didn't tumble. She didn't spin. Instead, she remained perfectly stationary, the crossbow's recoil absorbed by a carefully designed counterweight system that fired a small magnetic pellet in the opposite direction at the exact moment of release. The bolt struck the holographic target dead center. The observation deck fell silent. "Interesting," Dravik finally clicked. "One success. Shall we increase difficulty?" "Please do," Sarah replied, already reloading. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency, the magnetic loading system doing most of the work. 10 seconds, bolt loaded, ready to fire. Target Beta, hostile squad, 20 meters. Erratic movement pattern, multiple vectors. 5 holographic Karathi warriors appeared, moving in different directions, using the 3-dimensional space of zero-gravity combat. This was where conventional weapons failed, where the human brain, evolved for 2-dimensional thinking, struggled to adapt. Sarah closed her eyes for 3 seconds. When they opened, her breathing had slowed. Her heart rate dropped to 40 beats per minute, a trick she'd learned from freedivers repurposed for combat. First bolt, center mass on target 1. The counterweight system fired. She remained stable. Reload, 7 seconds. Second bolt, glancing hit on target 2, enough to puncture a suit seal. Counterfire stable, reload, 6 seconds. Third bolt, missed. The hologram had changed vectors unpredictably. Sarah didn't curse, didn't hesitate, reload, 5 seconds. Fourth bolt, double kill. She'd calculated the trajectory to pass through target 3 and strike target 4 behind it. Both holograms flickered red, indicating fatal hits. Fifth bolt. The final target had learned was moving erratically. Sarah rotated her entire body using small thrusters built into her suit, lined up the shot, accounted for her own rotation and the target's acceleration, and fired. The bolt passed within a centimeter of where the target had been. Then it detonated. The shaped charge was small, designed for vacuum, and the hologram flickered out as the blast radius calculation marked it as eliminated. The observation deck remained silent for a full 10 seconds.
You
modified the ammunition, Dravik said slowly. Ancient humans used fire arrows, Sarah replied, reloading again. Her hands never stopped moving. We adapt. But the physics are fine, Commander. You just made assumptions. Sarah rotated to face the observation window, crossbow held casually. You assumed we'd use them the same way our ancestors did. You assumed we wouldn't innovate. You assumed that because something is old, it can't be improved. She gestured to the crossbow. This weapon has a magnetic loading system, a gyroscopic stabilizer, and a counter-recoil system. The bolts have programmable tips, armor-piercing, explosive, EMP, even medical darts for hostage situations. It's silent, doesn't create light signatures that give away positions, and doesn't generate electromagnetic interference. In close-quarters boarding actions where your plasma rifles would punch through hull plating and kill everyone, this weapon is surgical. Dravik floated closer to the observation window, his compound eyes fixed on the human below. You brought a bow and arrow to a space war. No, Commander. Sarah smiled. We brought human ingenuity. The crossbow is just the delivery system. She fired one more bolt, this one trailing a magnetic tether, and used it to pull herself gracefully to the exit hatch. As she cycled through the airlock, her voice crackled over the comm one last time. In 0G, you don't fight gravity. You fight assumptions. And humans? We've been proving assumptions wrong since we climbed out of the trees. The Karathi delegation watched her go in silence. Finally, Dravik's translator spoke. Recommend updating threat assessment of human boarding parties. Classification unpredictable. From somewhere in the station, another human voice replied, Now you're learning.